Hey folks, welcome back. Hope you're doing well out there. So in today's video, we're going to be discussing a really interesting connection between mindfulness practices, psychedelics, and secure attachment of all things, and how these all interconnect. And this will really give you an understanding of one of the underlying major keys to healing and self-regulation and balancing your nervous system. So if that interests you, and I really hope it does, please join me. All right, I think this is going to be a really fun video for a lot of you guys, and I'm really excited to share this with you. So over the last few months, I've been going deep into attachment theory and really exploring, reading, learning more about the different studies, kind of just really trying to tune up my knowledge and my understanding of attachment, both for my own personal edification and personal growth, for my ability as a coach, so that I'm better in terms of relationally interacting with other people, and also so that I can articulate to you guys here more clear understanding about attachment. And during my study, I came across a piece of information that I found super striking here, which is that there's a particular ability, I'm sure there's a bunch, but there's a particular ability here that I want to talk about today that securely attached people have that is more developed, that translates into their experience of secure attachment. So this is an expression of secure attachment. And, one of the things I'm wondering here, I don't think there's any clear science on it, is that there might also be kind of, instead of a causal relationship here between secure attachment and this ability, that it's actually a two-way thing where it's both we have this ability and that can create more secure attachment, and secure attachment creates more of this ability, which is kind of my hunch or my question here. So the ability that I want to discuss to you today is the connection between secure attachment and metacognition. And metacognition has implications for psychedelic use and also for mindfulness practices and meditation. So we're going to discuss how all of these interconnect. I think this will be really fascinating for you. So the first place to start here is let's talk a little bit about what I mean when I say metacognition, what that is specifically, because it's a bit of jargony, psycho terminology here. And I think we can break this down in a much more understandable, easy to integrate way. So let's define this first, and then we'll kind of explore the implications here. Okay, so what is this fancy term metacognition, right? So meta means about or above, and cognition, of course, means to think. Right. So when we are in metacognition, the idea here is that we are aware of our own thinking, or we are thinking about our own thinking. And this is an incredibly important skill when it comes to personal growth, personal development, psychological maturity, self-awareness. It's incredibly important, right? And so the ability to think about your own thinking is, in the literature, tightly connected with people's ability to, be in secure attachment. So the more securely attached people are, generally the more they are capable of metacognition. And like I just said in the context in the previous section here, my curiosity here, my wonder here is if metacognition is not only, caused by secure attachment, but it's also perhaps informs secure attachment and co-creates secure attachment. So maybe there's a feedback loop here between metacognition and secure attachment, or it's kind of a two-way thing rather than a one-way thing. So when we have metacognition, essentially we have another way of thinking about this is mindfulness, right? Or awareness of our experience without being totally inside of our experience, if that makes sense. So if we are low in metacognition, this generally means, in IFS language, we are hijacked by a part, or hijacked, limbically hijacked, and we're essentially inside our emotions, in thinking our thoughts, feeling our feelings, inside our experience, but not aware of it. So we are running the program of our thoughts and of our feelings, but we are not cognizant of that. We are simply on the ride of that experience. When we are in metacognition, we are able to be a witness to, an observer of our thoughts, right? But I think, more broadly, this also includes being aware of our feelings, being aware of our awareness, being aware of the somatic sensations in our body, and overall, I would say being aware of the totality of our experience, our state, our emotions, our thinking, all of that. So I like the term metacognition here, but I'm not always in agreement that it's solely cognition, right? In terms of conscious mind, rational, logical, prefrontal cortex thinking. I think we can think of this also as just more broadly meta awareness or meta attunement, meta awareness of all the different layers of our experience internally in a given moment, right? So metacognition is basically thinking about thinking or awareness of thinking, emotions, sensations, etc. So here's the through line through all of these different things. So you might be wondering, or you might already kind of be understanding, the connection here between mindfulness, psychedelics, and metacognition, delivering more secure attachment. But let me see if I can kind of draw this through line for you, because for me, it was immediately apparent and striking, the connection between these, right? So I think a lot of us know, intuitively, or maybe perhaps through the literature, that mindfulness practices are connected to improvement in therapy and are often integrated and applied in therapy, right? I don't think that's a kind of a shocker for anyone. But a lot of us also perhaps know about the connection between mindfulness and psychedelics, right? Or the application of mindfulness in psychedelic use. But I think a lot of us don't really think about how psychedelics could also, connect to this, so that there can be a triangle here, that this is one of the ways that we can develop metacognition, right? So let's say in general, we want to have this skill of being aware of our own thinking as a life skill, as a life tool. And we're calling this metacognition, roughly speaking. So you can do this through mindfulness practice directly, of course, right? You can also take psychedelics. And in my experience, what psychedelics tends to do, one of the first things it does is it starts to help you kind of detach from your own experience enough to start to observe it. And you'll have moments, if not the entire duration of your trip, in states of metacognition where you are self-aware of your own mind, self-aware of your own body, self-aware of your own thinking, self-aware of your own emotions, and experiencing them, but also aware of them and observing them at the same time. So this is a classic experience that psychedelics deliver. That's, again, strengthening for your, metacognition, which is, again, strengthening for your capacity for secure attachment, right? So let's say that you can develop it through mindfulness, you can develop it through psychedelic use, and there's a connection there. And then through developing metacognition with psychedelics, this then becomes a beefed up skill or an ability that you now can apply to your therapeutic work, either in psychedelic therapy or in non-psychedelic therapy, that helps you to develop your capacity for self-regulation and secure attachment with yourself, essentially. So one of the ways that you can get to healing is by developing metacognition, either through psychedelics, through mindfulness, through the combination of either, and bringing that over into the relational part of how you relate to yourself, creating secure attachment. So one of the places where a lot of us, let's say, become not mindful, it's a bit of an awkward phrasing, but stay with me for a moment here. Follow this with me if you can. One of the places where we become not mindful is often in our self-relationship, right? In the way that we think about ourselves, feel about ourselves, speak to ourselves, and relate to ourselves or certain parts of ourselves, right? And so this becomes a bit of a blind spot where we lose metacognition. And it's these places where we lose metacognition where we tend to get absorbed into the issue and hijacked by it. I hope that makes sense so far, right? So if we can bring this ability of mindfulness or metacognition, either developed in psychedelic states or mindfulness or in therapy directly, to our self-relationship, we can then start to become more self-aware of what we're thinking and feeling and regulate ourselves through those thoughts and feelings. And this starts to develop the capacity for secure attachment internally, earned secure attachment with ourselves, okay? Which is essentially a state of being healthy, being emotionally healthy and feeling safe in your own skin. So I hope this connection is starting to make sense here. There is clearly a way that all of these can be used together to further your healing process. So I want to share a couple of my own experiences here with this and kind of just have a bit of a personal share of my own experience with this. And then we can kind of wrap the video. Okay, just a little brief share of my personal history here. I promise to make it short. I started meditating before I started doing psychedelics, somewhere around 15 years old or so. I don't recall if I had had any like actual experiences of like true mindfulness when I was meditating. This was back, of course, in the early 90s. Meditation instruction was a different thing back then. I don't know if I really got proper meditation experiences back then, but I started the process. And then early on, around 16 or so, I started doing psychedelics. And early on in my psychedelic experiences, probably in that first 5 experiences, I'd say, I started to have moments of metacognition, of awareness of my own thoughts, my own feelings, and the capacity to observe my own thoughts and feelings. And I found it fascinating and gratifying and profound and mysterious and rewarding kind of all at the same time. Okay, that's it of my personal history. So, fast forward to me working on myself and trying to heal myself over, let's say, these last 10 years. And there was a moment where I started to internalize an understanding of secure attachment and the application of secure attachment in my self-relationship, which was a bit of a new understanding. And as I started to understand this and apply this, I started to use metacognition to essentially co-regulate myself, which doesn't make sense because that would be self-regulation, but that was kind of more, technically probably what I was doing. I was working with myself in a relational capacity to regulate my emotions using metacognition, using awareness of my own thoughts, my own feelings, my own body sensations, and kind of, I'll explain the process more in the future. That's all going to be a part of this whole share about my epiphany last year in this course. But long story short, I started to discover that I could co-regulate with myself using this metacognition as the fundamental ability to be able to pay attention and become aware of my own experience, internal experience, without being totally hijacked by it. As I started to discover how powerful this could be and the impact of this, it started to bring me rapidly into secure internal attachment with myself, essentially. And so this is there's something really profound here about having this ability to observe and think about your own thoughts and be aware of your own thoughts, your own emotions, without being consumed by them, but still being able to feel them at the same time. I know that might sound strange to you, but when you get the feel for this, it's the most natural, easy thing to do. And again, to like bring this back around, when we are consumed by our thoughts, when we are consumed by our emotions, when we are consumed by the layers of fear or depression or reactivity or being limbically hijacked by a trigger or whatever it is, when we are totally absorbed into those experiences, right? Those are the moments where we lose all ability to heal ourselves, work with ourselves, transform the situation, progress something, offload a pattern, et cetera, et cetera. There's no ability to heal in that. I guess another way of saying this would be that mindfulness and really more fundamentally, metacognition is an absolute prerequisite to healing yourself. This is a master key to trauma healing. Okay, this is a master key to developing safety in your own skin, to developing self-esteem, to developing self-love and self-connection, to all of it, right? The ability to be aware of your own thoughts and your own emotions without being totally, merged with them and consumed by them is absolutely essential to your success in this path, right? And so this really needs to be developed and worked at and put first. So I just want to kind of put this out there and kind of communicate that there's a connection here between mindfulness, between psychedelic use, and between secure attachment, interestingly enough. And so let me share a few of the implications here, and then we'll kind of wrap the video. Okay, so my thoughts on some of the implications of understanding this, right? So obviously this is kind of a Venn diagram overlapping kind of situation where there are different categories of practice here, whether we're talking therapy and emotional regulation or psychedelic use or spiritual practice, essentially meditation and mindfulness. And there is a place where all of these overlap that is incredibly ripe and rich for our healing, right? So that's the first thing to understand, that this intersection between these spaces is powerful and healing. Obviously, if you're watching this channel, you're probably already either experienced in that or self-aware of that or open-minded about that. So kudos for being curious about that, but there's something here. That's the first thing I want to say. Second thing I want to say is, obviously, in my own experience and what I've seen a lot of other people experience too, we can use psychedelics as a tool. And one of the ways that psychedelics probably heal us is as a tool to deepen and hone our capacity for metacognition, or awareness of our thoughts and awareness of our emotions. It is a skill. It is a practice. It takes time and exposure and getting a feel for and doing over and over and over. And for sure, maybe I don't want to overgeneralize here, but I would say for the majority of us, even if we're well developed as meditators and, skilled therapeutically and skilled with psychedelics, even then, on occasion, we're going to get hijacked. We're still going to lose our metacognition. So don't be discouraged if it happens. Just keep working at it, okay? I think that, we can use this expanded metacognition to develop more secure attachment and therefore more self-regulation, right? So this is an important piece, that when we are aware of our own thoughts and are aware of our own emotions, then we can attune to them and regulate them and work with them, right? But if we are not aware of them because we're underdeveloped in our metacognition, then we're simply going to feel them and be hijacked by them and be on the ride of them for however long they go for, right? So this is a major tool into healing your trauma, feeling safer in your own skin, feeling happier, becoming more self-aware, becoming more mature and self-realized as a human being. And obviously, we can also use mindfulness practices to the same effect. So if you're someone watching this and you are not into the psychedelic side of things, so be it. It's not necessary to get this skill or get this effect. It's just another window into what metacognition is and how to do it, I think, from my point of view. So all of these fit together in the most amazing, beautiful way. And I would say, my hunch here again, this will be the third time I said this in the video, but just to add into the summary here, my hunch here is that this is a two-way street between metacognition and secure attachment, right? So I don't think it's just that you have secure attachment and then out of that, you have this emergent ability to be more self-aware of your own thoughts. I think it's also the other way around. Now, as you become more self-aware of your thoughts, it probably steers you towards a more secure way of relating, right? So, more on how to do that and the particulars of that. But I just want to kind of share this interesting piece of news that there's kind of a connection here between psychedelics, secure attachment, and mindfulness practices. So enough for now. Hopefully you find this interesting. Let me know what you think. Is this useful to you? Is this relevant? Does this help? I'll say that, with my clients, a lot of the times where they get stuck is that place where they lose their metacognition. And often the edge we're working in terms of where their healing needs to happen is around developing metacognition and self-awareness, awareness of their thoughts in the places where they tend to lose it, right? So in my own direct experience with my clients, this bears out as being super useful over and over and over in terms of healing the places where we tend to get hijacked and where we tend to experience the wound. So anyways, kind of tangent there, but what do you think? Does this resonate for you? Is this obvious to you? Is this striking and new to you? I'd love to know what you think. Please leave your comments and thoughts down below. And tons more content on the way here. Thank you for joining me. Much love to you all. I hope you're doing well out there, and I'll talk to you soon.